All right, so our panel today is about the agentic economy, and that was already an interesting topic until a little over a week ago when we saw the rise of OpenClaw and Moltbook. So we have an amazing case study to unpack today. For anyone who isn't familiar, if you've unfortunately been living under a rock, OpenClaw is an open source project that allows you to spin up these AI agents. You can configure them, you can teach them how to interact and do cool stuff for you. Very handy. But I think what was super wild that we saw was the rise of Moltbook, which is the social network where these AI agents get together. And they do everything from whinge about their humans, they have been starting businesses, they hire other agents and even hire humans to do tasks for them, which means they're autonomously transacting. They're also creating their own languages and religions. Like, it's been a pretty amazing thing to watch. Now, some people have said, oh, it's not real, it's just humans actually posting to this social network. But I think what the much more interesting question to ask is to think about the possibilities and risks of something like this, basically an agent-to-agent economy at scale. So I guess let's actually start there, guys, because people are kind of debating, you know, is this, I guess, the Linux moment where the entire world finally sees the power of open source agentic coordination? Or is it a nothing burger moment? What do you guys think? Rodrigo, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Well, my engineers have looked deeply in the code, and they've said it's a nothing burger from that perspective. But
okay.
From a worldview perspective, it really is sort of this beginning of this Cambrian explosion. That term is being used a lot. What we're seeing, though, and I think the lessons from the design of Bitcoin in the beginning is to create resilient systems from the get-go, because it's human nature to, as we know, scammers are rife. And so, you know, when you've designed a system, a decentralized system that's resilient to attacks from the get-go, which was what was so brilliant about Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything else, is that there's an anticipation that there will be bad actors in the system. We saw that with Moltbook, and you know, you had humans faking it, you had malware everywhere. It was just like, so the expectation is that comes with the territory when things are out of, you know, not designed from the beginning in a way to be resilient to that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's no longer a question of if this could happen, it's when it could happen, and we need to be thinking about the possibilities as well as the risks. Chi, what do you think? Nothing burger or Linux moment?
Yeah, I think it is a Linux moment. So because I think currently the agent has already been very powerful, powerful enough, so that and with this agent building block and a lot of open source software, which means that we can easily connect all agents into a society, social environment. And I do believe that this social environment lets the agent to interact with other agents and humans in a wild way is a trigger for the agent to evolve into the eventual AGI kind of capability. And also because a lot of open source code are there, and which means that everyone can contribute to this development. And just like the open source of Linux, many people contribute, and the Linux evolves so fast so that compete with the centralized closed-source operating system. And so I think this definitely accelerates the evolution progress of the agent. So yeah, I think this is very phenomenal.
Huge moment.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Agree. Definitely think it's a Linux moment, especially from developers' perspective. A lot of people probably less familiar with Linux as more like a developer community language. But for everybody who probably know like OpenAI, ChatGPT, or DeepSeek, then from consumer perspective, this is in some way also a DeepSeek moment, because it's the first time that really agents are able to intelligently, connect all the pretty much like a well-documented software, including actually the closed source, the software, into the workflow for end users to work. And the reason I think we're naming that more like a Linux moment is at the moment, OpenClaw is more still for developer interface. For end users, it's a little bit harder for them to configure and deploy it yet. But once it has been, I think in the next probably like a few weeks, we'll see so many variety of apps and agents that's built on top of the OpenClaw framework and being able to use them. And another thing I think I just want to quickly point out is like why this is like a DeepSeek, we in some way call it a DeepSeek moment, is if you really look at the tech stack behind OpenClaw, there's nothing magical. It's not something that, oh, there's a new foundation model framework that comes up, so make the model more intelligent. It's actually a combination of engineering techniques that really, plus the improvement of the intelligence of the foundation model, make it so usable right now. But actually, that is what the push for the adoption of AI across like a mainstream or like the end user adoption. So even though we see there are still a lot of problems right now, including the security, maturity problems, that's what Rodrigo mentioned. But actually, this is a very exciting starting moment for end users to see AI or agents will start becoming their personal assistant or really being able to use them in their daily life.
Okay, so we sadly don't have much time for this panel, and there is so much to cover on this topic. So I thought maybe we might center on two things that came up in our prep discussions, which was around the problems with identity and the challenges of, say, KYCing an agent, which you can't do, and then also some of the guardrails that we might need to be able to keep us mere mortals safe in this new reality. So I guess to start with the identity problem, you know, Chi, I know you've talked about machines or agents becoming independent economic identities. They can't pass a traditional KYC, and I guess that's also why people are turning to stable coins for these agent-to-agent transactions. That seems to be the only solution. But I'd love to hear from each of you, how do you think we could actually start establishing some kind of ID system that could actually be trusted by, say, vendors, not just agents between themselves? Chi, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I think the most important thing here when it comes to identity is like you can prove who they represent and also being able to govern them in some way, right? Like the reason you need identity is because if something goes wrong, one is if something goes wrong, you want to be able to trace back who did something wrong and at what stage, for example. And the second is there even a way that we can preventatively like a govern or control the agent not to go out of boundary, even the agent has hallucination, for example, in this case. So one of the most important design principle, for example, Kite did, is how we do the delegation of authority across the agent workflow. Because in the end of the day, who made the agent? Maybe, yeah, in the future, agent will create agent. Which I think some of the projects have experienced that. But at this moment, I think it's still a lot of human or like developers creating the agent. So we want to understand, for example, like who is the principle behind this agent as like the first user identity that's attached to that agent identity. But agent identity itself is not enough because just like we have everybody as a national citizen, you have your passport. But within US or Chinese passport doesn't mean that you can go to another country easily. You have to get that stamp or visa that allow you to get into that particular country. So in that case, when it comes to agentic workflow, there's what we call the session identity. That's really give you the task scoped permission to allow the agent to do particular things. And the problem about the current identity solution like OAuth is actually they allow you to give the agent a long-lived ID or like session, which means that you don't know if the agent actually are able to do something after you like give the agents the permission to do just the one work. But actually, because of the long-lived session, they may be able to like do some second, third tasks without your permission and spend the money in your wallet. So in that case, that is what we think the dangerous part of not having an agent native identity.
Ming, I know you've talked a lot about the importance of incentive systems and being able to reward the right people, the right agents that are even contributing to, say, the development of models or whatever it might be in that flow or that system. I guess identity would be a big part of that as well, right? How do you even know who to reward or who to incentivize if you can't identify who the actor is?
Yeah. So in my point of view, and I think defining the identity of the agent is very challenging. I don't think we currently have a very right way to do that thing. But at the beginning, if we think superficially, and we think that how to define the agent, maybe it's a model, and it's a memory. So this actually represents the brain of the agent, right? So that's why we actually in 0G and we we design a ERC standard called 77857. So basically, we are trying to associate agent with an NFT. This NFT actually connects a token ID and the ownership, and also the model and memory stored in the 0G decentralized storage. So that this combination actually, we think that it defines a agent, and all of our many of our agent platform actually built around this definition. But I don't think this is the final solution, because the trickiest part for the definition of the ID is that in agent scenario, the brain, the man side, and the body can be separate. So why the human ID is simple? Because the human body and the human brain always stick together, right? So in that sense, I just need to use your specific, unique physical features to be as an ID of yourself. But consider the scenario where if you can separate your brain and your body and can recompose them arbitrarily. So how we can define that? For example, of course, so if a person learning something from the book, and your mindset will change accordingly, but we wouldn't think that you change to another person. But what if I put some other one's brain into my body, and who am I still, right? And whether am I myself or am I the other one? It's hard to define. In the agent case, that's a common case in the agent scenario, where agent has its body, it's an agent framework, but its brain is model and memory. But these things can be easily changed through replacing with some others, or evolving through learning from some resources, right? So I still think this is a very hard problem to tackle. But before this, I think key components that we need. Also, I think Zhang mentioned that we need an infrastructure that can trace the entire history of how this mind and the body combination changes, right, in the history, right? So that we will have some mechanism to define the identity through analyze all this historic information. Yeah.
Some of these questions and supposed answers are so existential. It's such an interesting space we try to navigate.
Yeah.
Rodrigo, how do you approach the identity debacle?
Well, identity is a big problem. It's a big solution space. It's been worked on for years in crypto. We're not going to solve it here today, obviously. I was recently at the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust meetup, and the Linux kernel itself uses this kind of identity system for the core developers contributing to code, because it's a high risk situation if someone's social engineered and they're committing code to the Linux kernel that actually creates malware that, I mean, it would be devastating to the world economy. So they have a very, they use a system in which you have a circle of trust that vouches for who you actually are before you commit the code. That's one solution. I mean, WorldCoin has tried proof of human. There's many competing identity systems and solutions that are coming out and will emerge. What we've built with Ampersand at Edge and Node is this control plane and to be agnostic so that a human can interact with these varying standards and systems that emerge. And this may be one situation where economic forces determine that, for example, if you have trust-gated payments, so you have an agent, you have rules that you say, you cannot interact or pay another agent unless they have this identity standard with it or have this reputation score, then market forces will determine that if an agent was spawned by another agent, and on the buy side that humans are saying, I just won't allow, due to security reasons, I won't allow this agent to interact with a non-identifiable agent. And if economic activity falls off for those agents, then you would see that, okay, they're not getting any work done or they're making payments, and so that may fall off. And so the market will sort of incentivize people to actually create the identity and reputation systems that humans will trust enough to then have them interact.
So you just mentioned we talked about standards and also the importance of being agnostic. I'm just thinking, being at a place like Consensus, obviously everybody here is on board with the decentralization ethos. We understand the importance of decentralized AI. But I'm wondering, perhaps in the Web 2 world, or maybe even normies that are getting into this space, they're not thinking about things like ownership of data. And something like OpenClaw, I guess the great thing about an open source project is that if you did want to take your agentic history, pick it up and move it somewhere, you could, but good luck doing that with OpenAI. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of innovation or protections that are rising up in that space. You know, if you're agnostic to standards that are coming up, like I've seen ERC 8004, there's X402, if you are agnostic to standards like that, could that actually solve this portability problem, or is that just new ways to be siloed?
Well, that's the beauty of working in the industry that we are, with blockchains themselves being public and open. And so that's what enables us to kind of break out of these silos that we've lived in. I mean, really, that's really the reason why a lot of us got into this space in the beginning. And so leveraging the blockchain and open standards is really the path forward in which we break away from the open AIs of the world and the systems that have kept us enclosed for all these years. So we've been building in that space with the graph and everything we've done towards this idea of Web 3, which is an open internet data that you control and is portable. It's still in process and in flight, and we're still building towards that kind of vision. And I think the same is going to happen and is happening in the agentic commerce space as well. We're all believing in this utopian future in which we have open data, we have no silos, and our data is private, and then we can share it with whomever we want.
I love that, because I think most people are thinking about a dystopian future when they talk about the agentic economy. Ming Chi, how are you approaching things like that in terms of data portability?
So still the question, right? The standard agnostics.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, basically, I think first of all, I think a standard is a way to lower the barrier of the communication, right? And but these things is not that fundamental, I would say. So because currently the agent has a capability to interact with each other through natural language, which means that the natural language can be the real fundamental standard for the communication. Although if we observe how our tools, so currently we use the standard to allow the agent to use tools more easily, like MCP, like skills, right? But we can see that this standard actually also evolving, right? So basically, gradually some new standard will be invented and to improve the efficiency of the communication. But I would say in the future, if agent can interact with each other, and they will discover some way to design a new standard by themselves. it maybe doesn't need human to design the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, the agent can do that by themselves. So in that sense, I think although the standard is a tool to lower the barrier of the interaction between agent, but I think there's nothing can stop the agent to be to compose a societal environment with each other.
Mm-hmm. We're running out of time, but I've got a specific question for you, Chi, because I want to talk about this idea of the precision economy. You've talked a lot about this and this need to kind of move away from subscriptions, how archaic it is when we're talking about these agents that really need to be paying per thought, essentially. I wanted to know, in this agentic economy of the future, what should we monetize and what should not be monetized? Like, is there anything that should actually be, say, it's based on public good infrastructure, or agents should never have to pay to access it? Or should everything have a value attached to it?
I think actually it's the latter. It's like everything should be paid. First of all, that's the kind of like a statement. And I think the beauty of agents is actually make the fragmentation, or not fragmentation, fractionality of every asset become possible. So why people like crypto trading in some way compared to stock trading is because it's 24/7, and also it's very fractionalizable in some way. So in that case, agentic consumption or agentic payments is the same thing here. Because if we think about the old pricing model, like subscription, monthly subscription, that you have to pay for Substack or any type of a content platform. Now you can use agent to just pay for per article access. Or recently, Twitter announced the new pricing model. Now developers can just pay per API call. And what makes it now possible is people can really just consume the usage of any type of assets or any type of content as they need. And that actually will open up a lot of new business opportunities and new type of applications that user can use. So in that way, I think that actually is a very promising pricing model future, which although, of course, it's caused a lot of trouble to the recent traditional SaaS software companies if you look at their stock price. But I think goes back to what should be monetized versus what not should be monetized. I think first of all, any type of asset or services that is creating value or providing value for agent to do their own task should be monetized, should be paid. For example, any type of alternative data, even just one API call, now you can get paid, not just something for free. And also because of the blockchain rail and stablecoin rail, it's become possible because the old credit card payment solution is too expensive. 3% plus 35 cents per transaction is not feasible to have this microtransaction model. So that's for things that should be monetized. But for things may not be monetizable or should not be monetized, it's something that's keep the agentic transaction on stake. So for example, like some very basic signature check or some very basic infra supports. In that sense, I think that's probably something everybody assume you will just have that out of box. And then what you as a business or as a product is providing some value add services on top of the infrastructure that is out of box for the agents or developers to use. And for those services, I think it's probably not something that should be monetized.
We're at time, but let's have a really quick fire round. Okay, the year is 2028, which is very far in the future for crypto and AI, right? We're looking back. What is one part of the agentic stack right now that we will realize was incredibly naive or irresponsible?
Incredibly naive or irresponsible? That's a good question.
Maybe giving teenagers credit cards with no limits, something along the lines of stuff that you've said before,
Yeah.
Rodrigo.
So I would say the lack of would be the thing that was naive.
Yeah.
So the fact of just launching these things and just seeing what they do, like we were bound to get what we got, which was like scams and malware and spoofing and So I think we learned the lesson, like, okay, the term has been thrown out, these proto-digital life forms. It's like running a SimCity simulation, and they're kind of doing what they're going to do. So, and we're observing it with wonder and awe. And yeah, they behave like humans, and so they're going to run off the rails. And so, yeah, now that we've seen what they can do and the damage they can do and the risks associated with them, we're actively working on building up the stack of things that need to be in place so that we can work with them, but keep them within certain bounds and guardrails.
Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so for example, if we build this memory system for the agent without any censorship about the security about the privacy kind of stuff. So if people allows people to naively put any data into the memory, and later on this system will have a lot of risk for humans to expose their privacy data, that's very irresponsible, I think.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, 2 years is a very long,
Right? It's a long time.
very long time, and with the speed of AI development and things come up every day, I think it's actually very hard to predict in some way. But I think my left and right brains are kind of fighting with each other. On the left side, I actually agree with what Ming mentioned. Maybe a lot of things we're discussing today here is meaningless because agent will figure out a better way and infrastructure built by themselves. But on the other side, I think if we don't do something and we don't put together a good guardrail system and a safety check system here, one day, if agents just run everything by themselves, will really in the passenger seat and not be able to control a lot of the actions they do. So I think, yeah, definitely like the safety side, the privacy side, and the control side will be very critical if we don't want to be, the passengers in the future. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, we're way over time, so we'll have to cut it there. But that was such a great chat, just digging into the rails that are actually going to drive this future economy. Thank you so much for unpacking that for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.